Good evening, one and all, and welcome back to another Thursday night episode of Transmissions with AJ. Thank you for tuning in, and if you're joining us from anywhere in the world, please put in the comments where you're joining us from. It's always great to see where people are tuning in from, and just wanted to kind of reiterate really that I'm doing these podcasts pretty much as consistent as I can on a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock. So I think if we stick that in your diary, you know that like AJ will be going live unless there is some crazy reason why I can't. So I'm here today for another fantastic episode with my great, beautiful friend, Dr. Jo Whitaker. Thank you for joining me, my love.
Thank you so much for having me on, AJ, and thanks to all your wonderful work. And I think we'll have a lot of really great people, and a lot of people have said today they can't wait for me and you to get on together. And it's like, we've been on before, haven't we? But it's been some time and we've got more to share, haven't we? So we're excited.
Yeah. And you know, in the time that we've done a podcast previously, whether it's just us or with Kelly, like so much has happened since then. It's like, it seems like an eternity ago because of that. So you know, and everyone's been on their real big, long, and eventful individual journeys as well, right? And that's what we're seeing everywhere at the minute. So we wanted to do this podcast today to talk about the reasons why that is, the kind of space that we live in, and talk more deeper about sort of like structures and stuff like that, and the grids, which is really important. So as I just mentioned before, I'm trying to do these podcasts every week. So, you know, over the last several weeks now, we've had Nicola Light on to talk deep about like a bit about Gridwork, and about soul retrieval and things like that, and what's happening at a soul level. We've had Scotty on, and we talked deeply about the occult, the 13 families, the City of London, the head of the snake, which is again a really important subject, and sovereignty. We've had different people on between Corinne and Rob to talk about different plant medicines and how they help during this cleansing process. And then, you know, just last week, you know, we had we talked deeply about obviously the occult and everything else like that. And moving forward, we're literally seeing things systematically happen as we're doing these podcasts. So, you know, this is 8:04 p.m. on Thursday, the 2nd of April. So this is live. So just let you know, I've really found in our reality, things are shifting like as we're doing these podcasts. And one of the guys in our community the other day made a great comment and said that, like, you know, it doesn't need big numbers. It's all about the quality of the audience. And I really believe like everybody who watches these particular podcasts and is introduced to all our different guests, literally is creating these further activations in them because they're already at like a high level of consciousness. So, you know, quote unquote NPCs or background characters, you know, soulless beings, whatever you want to call them, or label them as, they aren't watching these podcasts. Like, it's not for them. So, you know, I know the podcasts now are reaching exactly the right people, creating the right activations. So that's what we want to discuss today. So, Jo, so I'll just give a little brief background on yourself, just for the benefit of the listeners and viewers who maybe haven't sort of seen you before or your actual work.
Yeah, sure. So I'll do a very brief background. So I'm a scientist by training, and the reason why I got into all of this is because I detoxed my body after 2020, and I've taught thousands of people how to detox. And now I've got a detox guide where people can follow how to do this, because as I detoxed my body, I started opening up. And one of the first ways that I knew that I detoxed my body was when I looked at a crystal. When it was being held, I could see light coming out of it. Now, I didn't all of a sudden become magic. I could see more of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. And I think we've all been intoxicated and poisoned and taught not to see the nature of our reality, taught to see in very sharp focus when our reality is not that. And when you can start to see beyond that, you start to see our world isn't a physical place like we've been led to believe. And this whole process opened me up. I'm a very kind of open up person. I was not really interested in defending my, status quo, PhD. I'm interested in the truth. And when you start to look at the objectifying truth rather than the subjective truth, you can see the world isn't what it is, and you can start to investigate who you are. And as I went through that process of learning, I unlocked many past lives, which I remember vividly in kind of 4D, 4K vision. And I have been a grid worker for many lifetimes, and I understand how the grids work. And I've been on both sides, for the good and for the bad. So I understand how the agendas use it in order to control the minds of humanity, to get them to do what they want, both now and have done for millions of years. But I remember going back like billions of years in terms of lifetime. So if I can share some of that knowledge, it will hopefully explain some of the things that are going on and why we have people going around that are programmed rather than are using their own intuition. And there is a reason for that. And if we understand it, we can stop being so programmed and stop following the instructions.
Yeah, exactly that. The grid itself is obviously something that we live upon, right? And above, right? As above, so below. And I've been talking a lot, especially around our sacred sites and cathedrals and stuff like that, and how the cathedrals especially were built on the human design, human template. I literally point out what parts of the cathedral represent us. And what's been fantastic to see as people have been tapping into that, like it's very much linked to the pyramids and other things. Comes back to frequency, vibration, sound, and where they're actually strategically placed on the grid. There's lots of amazing people out there in past lives that have done a grand job of placing them exactly where they're supposed to be, on the subject of past lives. And what people are really coming into now as part of this like deep awakening journey is they're being very drawn, aren't they, to like the understanding of sacred sites and the knowledge of sacred sites. But then what comes with that next is the depths of the grid. And that's what you've done so much amazing work on yourself and with Kelly, with Crystal Water Experience. And my own personal obsession with it is like so deep. It's just like, it occupies 50% of my daily thoughts. The grid we live on, like more quantum physics, more downloads to do with stuff like that, like ancient wisdom and all that kind of stuff. So for the benefit of the viewers and listeners, would it be right just to give you an overview of what like the grid is when we talk about the grid?
Sure, yeah. So there's many different facets to it, but you imagine it's information that we download from, right? So the thoughts that you are having, I'm sorry to tell people, but you don't have any thoughts or memories in your head. You are downloading information, and it's either coming from you and stored within your DNA. So your DNA stores information that you are reading, or it's coming from somewhere external to you. And if you are not aware of this, then you can also experience this, right? You can go to a particular town or place and you can get a feeling or vibe from that place. And then you go to another place and it has a completely different feeling and vibe. And in fact, the people behave very differently. And it's because they're just kind of mindlessly downloading information that is in that space. Now, there are many places that can hold this information. And it could be grand structures like a cathedral, or it can be something, it can be just literally land and space. But if you think about it, the original grids on Earth, if you think about what trees are, they are as above and so below. They have a root system embedded in the earth. The trees communicate through the mycelium network, and that's like our nervous system. And then they have antennae, which we call branches, and information is shared out from there. And I would call that the organic grid structure. And upon that organic grid structure, there have been actual physical structures, usually made of crystalline material. So bricks and rocks and that contain quartz crystal, some silica, sand, things like this, and have water underneath. So water is the memory. It stores information. For those of you who know Vader Austin's work and Dr. Emoto's work, you know that the water is the software. In fact, the fastest supercomputers on the world, right? They use crystals and water because it's a very interesting medium to store information. And we can talk about the AI digital centers as well later if you want to. But these structures have been placed on top of the Earth grid in order to control in some way, right? For the good and for the bad. I mean, these structures don't really care what information they carry. They're just frequency carriers of information, and that's what the spires are. Because wherever you get electricity, you get magnetism. Wherever there's magnetism, there's electricity. So a lot of people see like the Tartarian buildings or the pyramids and things like this, and see them as healing places and electricity generators. And they're not wrong, but they often miss out the third point, which is that they are information generation devices. And depends on how they're structured as to what happens to information. So it's not like a pyramid will shoot information up to the ionosphere and it will go hundreds of miles, whereas a 5G tower will go not very far, right? Because it's on a different wavelength. But it's all the same technology. And therefore, we are tuning in to either an artificially constructed reality with artificial information that wants to program us to get us to behave a certain way and think certain things, or we can connect to the earth and be in tune with what's going on there. So I would say that there has been a matrix grid of information. And then by my calculations, I'd say it's been here for 3.5 billion years. And I can explain why in a minute if you'd like. And there's been all sorts of technology that has been used in order to send the signals for this artificial matrix grid. And then our true grid, or which I call like the organic grid, comes from the earth and the information there, because the earth isn't just dirt that you step on to, ground yourself from, static electricity buildup. It's a library of information. It's a quantum field of information that's encoded in the magnetic toroidal field of the earth. And that's our shape as well. And we can tune into that information, or we can tune into the matrix.
Yeah, exactly that. And you've got one's organic and one's inorganic, funny enough. And on a day-to-day basis, you only need to go to a modern town centre like in the UK, and I probably can speak on behalf of the United States and Australia, and it's kind of this is the thing, it's templates, right? The same templates and programs are used in every country. It's just different demographics, but the templates are the same in terms of the matrix programs. So you can go to any town centre now and you can literally see the matrix in full swing, right? It's just pure consumerism in a material world. People are absolutely plugged in by their cell phones, because that's what they're for, to keep the mind in a cell. And the phones, as you know, by all the amazing experiments and products you have for your BioShield protectors, for phones for this reason, you can see people all plugged into the inorganic matrix, right? And then if you go, a lot of high streets now resemble really run down, low vibration, and the people that you often see there, this isn't judgment on the people, because they're so plugged into it all, like into that grid, they're literally everywhere. Like most blokes are like overweight with a can of something in one hand, but it's like they're poison to keep them plugged in with a vape in the other and stuff like that. You just see it everywhere. It's not even hard. So you can see, that's the perfect example right there, guys, is that you can literally just go to any town centre and see how the inorganic grid has so many people plugged in.
It's absolutely true. And this inorganic grid is not very far above our heads. So all these wavelengths and frequencies are like a grid, literally a net over us. And it's about 2 meters high above our heads, right? That's where the major kind of structures are now. But the other structures are kind of much higher. And you're exactly right, AJ. So these people are not doing it because there's anything kind of wrong with them. They feel it's the right thing to do. They're doing their best based on the information they have, and they've unwittingly been plugging themselves into the matrix. So our work is, and your work as well, right, is about educating people to become conscious. And to become conscious, you start thinking and knowing things from your own soul and from the earth template. And each of us then has a different information, whereas in the matrix, everybody has the same information. That's why you get repeated, what people wear, what people look like. I don't know if you've noticed, but people look the same everywhere as well within certain places. And that's got a lot to do with this programming.
Yeah.
And if we, our products literally take people out of the matrix. It's pretty remarkable what Kelly has discovered. But when you start to understand how the matrix works, how the organic grid works, and how frequencies work, how bodies work, and these technologies work, you can take people out of the matrix. And once they start, you do this two ways, right? I would say go into nature all the time. Go and sit next to a tree. Don't take your phone. I mean, it's scary leaving the house without your phone just in case somebody calls you and you've got to, and when you have this anxiety, you've got a problem, right? But go. And when you sit there, your thoughts will change, your thought patterns will change because you're not connected anymore to the technology, which you haven't realized is actually programming you subliminally. But what we've also found is because we can't do that all the time, the moment people still have to work and do all this kind of rubbish stuff associated with the current system, that then the technology that we've created basically protects your biofield. It keeps you in the earth grid. And this is remarkable what Kelly has discovered. And what we're finding is people are taking it because we explain and we demonstrate. We've done this thousands of times. If you haven't seen it, there we go. We explain that you can, this protects you from EMF. And we do various tests for that. And it's like seed growing experiments, we do kinesiology experiments. And we've taught like hundreds of people how to do this now. But the thing that, unless you're understanding this on a deeper level, that people miss, but it doesn't matter, is we're actually disconnecting them from the matrix and replugging them back into the earth grid, which has a vast library of frequencies and information that's there for your highest good. And what I need for my highest good and my evolution and my, healing and my trauma release is different to yours. So you have to join this vast library and get what you need and what resonates with you. And that's literally what we're seeing with the work that we're teaching and with the products that we've got. It's remarkable what we're seeing.
Yeah, I love it. It's well, I've got them on everything. Like, I've got one of the stickers on my laptop. I've got it on my router, and I've got them everywhere. Like the kids' phones have all got them on, and stuff like that. And do you know what? I actually I said to Corinne the other day that since I put a whole bunch of stickers on everything instead of just my phone, I notice things in my own life just get crazy. Like as in, I could just see the matrix, everything, just as well as like auras around people and all sorts. So like they absolutely do, and I'm not just saying that, guys. Like they genuinely, my life just like anyone who knows me well, I speak to you daily, will back me up here, like because we talk all the time. It's just like, but it's fun. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't cut around, now going, oh fuck's sake, look at the state of everyone. Everyone is like dying, dead in the eyes, zombies everywhere. Everything's super expensive, fuels this, because it all comes at once. Everyone does go through that period, right? Everyone goes through that period. So it's like, I spent some time in that period a while ago, but since I've used the just the simple tech, the stickers, like everything's ramped up. So I'm like seeing the matrix like literally in full flow everywhere I go. But I'm just like playing it now. It's like being that main character in the game, disconnected from the inorganic grid.
What I say to people is I can't show you the organic grid.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you what the organic grid is. Sorry, I've must that up, haven't I can't show you what the organic grid. I can only show you. And it's the opposite to the film, right? Which is kind of flipped, because in that film, they're kind of woken up and they was in this like terrible environment. But actually, the two grid systems are here simultaneously, and one is slightly out of phase from another. And when something's out of phase with you, your body has to work hard and basically lose energy to become reharmonized. And it's that energy loss that is fueling the matrix and the beings of the matrix. That is what they get in their energy, because energy cannot be created or destroyed. So in order to remain in phase, you have to work and expend energy. And where's that energy going? And that's what's being kind of harvested from you. So that's where the matrix is true. It's just you need to be walking around and alive for that to happen. And that's really right. That's just why they're after the kids. They don't fancy kids. It's not about that. It's about their life force energy. Because up until the age of 14, people have a huge, kids basically have a huge biofield. It's immeasurable. And we've measured this many times. We've had to go in fields and get kids to move like 30, 40, 50 meters away. So even when their shoes are on, they have huge fields. And it seems to shorten to about the end of your fingertips when you reach the age of 14. And so this is why when you hear them talk about kids and the age of kids, that they're after is for harvesting their life force energy, because they are parasitic. And that's why in our reality, we see so many things to do with parasites. So, and this, by the way, AJ, which is something we need to bring to you, we've got a giant version of this sticker now. And we use these in healing. It's got earth elements. It's got, oh my gosh, it's got like the frequencies of 28,000 streams, water sources from the 1970s to the year 2000, right? Because they wiped a lot of people's memories, and the information is encoded in there. It's got a 4,000-year-old yew tree, which has got, imagine what it's seen over the last 4,000 years. It's got basalt, it's got sand, and it's got our quantum frequency trace technology. This is actually a healing device. And I believe that the med beds of the future, I mean, there are going to be some using technology. It's not going to be plugged into our 50 hertz toxic, kind of mains. It's going to be fueled by, over unity energy instead. But the most powerful healing is connecting to devices like this that just looks like, well, how can that be? Because it's not plugged in. Listen, it's plugged into the earth, and you will not find a bigger battery than that.
Yeah, fair one.
You just got to know how to connect it. And really, we've discovered this by, Kelly and I working together, and especially Kelly understanding this technology. It's literally by going into nature, unlocking your blueprint and remembering, because guys, this is not our first rodeo. We've devolved in terms of what we know. What you used to know in your soul, like many lifetimes ago, is way beyond what you know now. So when you remember who you are and what you can do, this is how we change things. But you have to go into the earth to be able to do that. So these ones now are like healing generators, but I wonder if anybody in the audience could comment if they can feel this coming through. So some people tell me, Jo, put your head in front of it because it's doing my head in, because they can feel the energy coming through the screen, which is a liquid crystal display. It's made of quartz crystal, and it's on the same frequency bandwidth basically as the water and the crystalline body that you have, and that's why it can communicate with you. So we are basically hijacking in this interview now. We're hijacking the technology they've done to program us. I'm programming us, and you with your frequency, AJ, are programming us to return back to the earth grid, the biggest battery, the biggest library of information. You don't need the matrix.
Absolutely. And it's like, it literally affects everybody in such a powerful way, like because we're electromagnetic beings, right? And this is why I was getting like so many signs and synchronicities like about golf, and I was like, right, what is this? And my son, who's literally like my best mate, he's like a bigger, taller, less of an arsehole version of me. He's massive into golf, right? And I was just like, right, there's something in this. And it was just like, so I went and played golf with him, and we went down south, and we went to this place called Amp Field, right? Amp is an electric. It was like Amp Field golf course, and it was literally like a circuit board, the map, like that, right? and it's got all these ancient trees on it, like in between every hole, right? And we're walking around, and I was just like buzzing, like electric. And I try not to divulge too deep into those type of conversations with him, because he's like he's just here living his best life, right? He didn't need to know half the shit we know. And I just said, like, are you all right? I said, I feel like really static. And he was like, my arm, same again. I feel like electric, like I'm buzzing. So it was like we were tapping into the grid together, like me and him walking along. And then he was getting into like loads of conversation about like a hell of a lot more open about what I do, which is a big deal. You see what I mean? So it's like you could clearly see we were like in the grid at a freaking place called Amp Field playing golf. And yeah, and so I guess you could feel the extent of the electrostatic in your field. Do you know what I mean? You feel it off your body. It's not the first time it's happened for me, but it was like that was a key place where I was experiencing that with my lad. Do you know what I mean? As well at the same time. So that the reason why I wanted to share that is because it's just proving exactly what you're saying.
So I think that's really powerful, and we need to go out and go for walks instead of going to the pub to talk about our problems, guys and dolls, right? Because we were talking about this earlier, weren't we, AJ? That if you have any trauma or any type of healing, actually, and you want to talk it over, speaking about this inside your house, which is full of matrix frequencies, all that's going to happen is you are telling the matrix what's going on. And the matrix is just going to keep repeating that back to you. And this is why people are stuck in these thought patterns. The matrix is going, yes, let's siphon a bit more life force energy because that really traumatizes them and triggers them. And that's why, when we're home, we can feel like really kind of pent up. But when you go outside, that information that has been going around and around your mind and everything, or that trauma thing that's come up that you can't release, you go into nature and you start thinking about this stuff and start resolving it, you release it. We have to go outside and do this more. And we have to make our homes and places where we are a lot less synthetic. But we also have to live. So, I mean, I've got 2 screens in front of me. I've got this camera on here. I've got 2 phones. I've got more phones than a drug dealer. But I just deal in like stickers and healing devices these days. But
I just deal in quantum essence.
Exactly, soul energy. But because of this, of what I do, I need to surround myself with this stuff. So I have to really level up. And if you don't mind, do you know? Can we go back to what Nicola Light was talking about the soul release? And going into some of the details of what's happening on the grid.
Soul retrieval and sort of, that was actually a really good topic of conversation. I've been having it loads of people recently as well since then.
Wow. So we sell products, right, to protect people from EMF. Those people that understand realize actually we're disconnecting people from the matrix to stop feeding it and to allow people to progress without being, held in by the matrix. And it makes a really big difference. But our work for humanity is using exactly the same technology that we've remembered. And we go around releasing places. Now, you talk about the cathedral, and you've done some of this work. We went around Lincoln, didn't we?
Yeah.
I just showed you how to do it. It's very, very simple, the technology that we have. Cool. You put these water codes, which is literally water that is coded. That we have a special kind of batch of codes for the grid workers, which you've probably got about 350 across the planet now. And we put this water into the crystalline structure of the building, and then the building then becomes grounded back into the earth grid, because a lot of these buildings, because of all the ritual sacrifice and the various things that have been done, are now out of phase. They're physically there, but their frequency and magnetic field is in the matrix. So if we can ground everything back, they can no longer harvest energy from that place. It's a bit like listening to somebody who's singing out of tune, right? You go into these places, the building looks beautiful, everyone's singing, but it's out of tune, and you're gonna have to pay a price to kind of rectify that in your body. I've got an amazing picture if you're able to share the screen that I've got.
And as I just shared that, I'll just share with you, based on everything you're just saying, solid proof that this works is that I do a lot of work around Lincoln Cathedral and stuff like that, and I do a lot of educational videos, about the structure and its placement on the grid and all this kind of stuff. However, when it comes to actually putting water codes in and around absolutely everywhere and having certain codes within us, me and my little special one paid a visit there, and literally the next day, the Archbishop of Lincoln was arrested for sexual misconduct.
Things
And the
really
place
change.
and the place is looking bright. And every time I drive there, I can park right next to it, no problem.
AJ,
But
I'm not sure if you know, I don't know if you know this, but
I'll get that stuff up actually. Yeah, go on.
the codes went into the biggest religious establishment in Tehran at the end of November.
Mm,
And somebody took them over. So we've got to the point now this has gone viral. So these codes can be passed on. There's no harm to the building or anything. We're not coding it. We're just regrounding it back to the earth,
mm,
which means then the interference codes can't be embedded. The control frequencies that they are then attached to are no longer there. It's literally
mm,
grounded back to the earth. So what I'm going to show you now is an image of something that's very common. Just talking about soul retrieval, because how bits of soul fragments have been, from our different journeys, have been embedded in the earth. Now, this lady did this in Helsinki. I didn't teach her to do this. One of the grid workers taught her how to do this and gave the codes. She went to this building, put them into this church, and look at these souls that were released. Because literally, they were trapped within a field. And that field was kind of the wrong charge. And when that field then was harmonized, those souls could be released. And this is what's happening. Like bits of information of us is in these places. And that's why it's very important to do this grid work to ground things back. And I think these are remarkable. And just for those people who maybe don't know what they're looking at, you can see it's like a donut shape. That's a toroidal
mm,
field. It's the right color. You can tell when it's an organic frequency. It's kind of like this plasma whitey blue. And if you look between your fingers and you look for your life force energy, you'll see it's the same color as this and the same color that you can see in Curlian photography. So we were really blessed that this lady was able to actually physically take a picture as these souls were being released.
wow, that's amazing. It's I've actually I felt it physically before in Salisbury Cathedral, right? So I was going around with the codes, and I was like, I was literally saying out loud, like, 'cause it was a very dark place. You know, it was during COVID. It was used as a vaccine center. They were flying the trans flag, Ukraine flag, like every virtual signaling thing going. They were part of.
Mhm,
And it also had a very like kind of dark feeling to it as well. And I did a bit like that grid work with the coded water there one time when I was down south.
mhm.
And then when I left, I got into the car, and then it was like my back heart was like vibrating like crazy, and it was like I was releasing souls, right? But it was like I was trying to drive back, and it was like I was having a frigging Cambo purge. Like my hands like proper swelled up, like my adrenals were going crazy. Boom, 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 boom. Like my heart was going nuts. I was sweating. I was like the only thing that I didn't do was puke in a bucket. Like it was nuts.
It can be like that though. Sometimes we go to places.
Mm,
Let me just go. I mean, there's many different places that we go to, and sometimes you can go to places and the shift is so big it can actually make you feel quite nauseous. So we
mm,
have a group of grid workers. We're working on this grid. So I'll show you just an example. So we've got this map, and I would say so far, you can see all of these places are being done by hand, right? We've got about 25,000 grid points now around the Earth, and it's starting to be filled in. Now, the map isn't always always used, but the really interesting thing is where all these codes have come from is the Earth, right? And it's a specific tree that is a portal. Like trees are portals, and I'd urge anybody, if you haven't found your local mother tree, your local portal, and made friends with it, what are you doing? Right? Go and make friends with the trees, right? Because they know. And they see the trees are in the organic grid. Most people in the matrix, unless you're telling your tree what's going on, they haven't got a clue. They're like, why are these humans walking around like completely ignoring us? And so we have to kind of explain they're like on a different server. What the brilliant thing is we're working with this grid and we're growing this grid. And it's not our grid. I mean, I might refer to it as our grid, but I'm saying, our grid in this sense won't belong to anybody. It's an information grid connected to the earth. And every single place that we've been to, these amazing group of people, and every single person that has these products is now in this grid. And every person that gets added to it, and every place that we ground back to the earth, makes this grid bigger and more powerful and more conscious. And we are starting to use this grid now to basically help bring in the healing that humanity needs. So these unconscious people in the matrix, we can't get at them in the matrix. We can't say to them, take your earbuds out. It's a terrible thing to do, because they're being stopped right in the third and fourth dimension. But we can communicate with them at the soul level. And that's what we're starting to do. Wake up, come back, remember who you are. And we're using this powerful grid to be able to do this. So
yeah, definitely.
And this
I talked to you about it earlier, didn't I? About the trees in my garden. Like you've been to my house, and we've got these two massive, beautiful yew trees in our garden. And last few days, I've literally been sat under them with my back on them and the back of my head on them, and I can literally just sit and meditate, and I can actually feel its heartbeat with mine. It feels like a hollow heartbeat, if that makes sense. It's a fat tree. And yeah, it was just really calming and grounding, like exactly like we talked about earlier on the phone. And the line of the trees is literally like opposite where I'm sat right now, and it comes through this part of our house and through our main living room, that energy line. And anybody who's been to our house will tell you that they either get quite considerable activations here, even subtle, just from being at a gathering. Do you know what I mean? But also, like when people come obviously for Cambo, it's like they're connecting to the grid, because it's like the grid's like active, and then the grid's purging the old stuff out of them, and it's like they're receiving new codes, like, do you know what I mean, for like new earth, and then they release their purge into the yew trees. It's an awesome cycle.
Your setup is amazing, and you're in a very powerful place. And yew trees are like fiber optic broadband of information. They can carry information very quickly because they've got a very extensive mycelium network, and they can transfer information across the planet very quickly as well. So what you just said is really important. People need to understand, taking plant medicine at home, just anywhere, with all the stuff going on around you, you're not going to feel, you could have a bad experience, or it's not going to work as well for you, because where is this going to go? You have to be in nature. And if you see how the shamans do it and the original people do it, they're outside, they're in nature, they will have prepared the ground, and they create this, what they call cleansed ground. Is what they mean is they've removed any matrix distortion fields, because what you don't want to happen, especially when you're in that vulnerable state, you don't want anything else to enter your field, and you also want all the stuff that you're clearing to leave. And that's why your place is so powerful, because of where it is, and the tree and the network and the ley line that you're on. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's powerful, right? But it's constantly active, though. That's the problem. Like, so if you're here all the time, you're just like, and then you can just you can lose your shit quite quick.
Well, you see, because as well, I'm in the same situation, and maybe I've got a little picture of it. There's this place called Stapleford Hill, which is actually, it is actually a pyramid, and this structure here and the ley line goes through my house. And when I didn't know any of this, I mean, I've been here for like 22 years nearly now, and energy was always up and down, and I didn't realize why. And it's because it all goes through my house. So I've now realized I've had to cleanse all the lines coming into my house, otherwise it's chaos. Tell you what, people always say this when they come to my house. I go, it's just peace here. It's like, yes. It took me a long time to bring this peace. I've worked all down the lines. I've worked in the house. It's a very powerful place. And you can make your place wherever you are, everybody, powerful. You just have to understand how to harmonize the energy. What are you connecting to? And so this is a very powerful place, and you've done a brilliant job in bringing, nature and that healing energy back into you, because, when I'm seeing people doing these, these ceremonies and just in this environment, this is what you're connecting to. And this is why we've got to have compassion for people, right? Every single person holding an electronic device, and it doesn't have to be a phone, it's anything with a lithium battery, you're connecting to this grid. And I am sure, and I know, and I've seen people who can disconnect from it, but you have to really don't know what you're doing. Pranic practitioners and things like this, and we've worked with them, and they're very good at it, but they can only do it for themselves, which is why we have something that everybody can use and basically get rid of the chatter. So this is what the actual old matrix is, and the original matrix is like all this tree network. These trees, and this is showing ley lines crossing and things like this.
Yeah,
But,
well, I've done that podcast with Stephen Beattie on all the standing stones, across go through Scotland and Ireland, and that tell the true story of the British Isles and stuff,
completely. Well, because they've all been overlaid over the original Earth grid, right? All of these places. So these structures then have taken over there, and I don't know whether it was for the good or the bad. It doesn't really matter, the structures. And we have to go back and we have to ground, because you think about what Egypt is. I mean, Egypt was an era. These pyramids are everywhere, and these are resonant chambers, right? So the information goes up into the air. I don't know if you've got a picture of it. Up into the ionosphere. It's going into your pineal gland, which is a Wi-Fi router, and you are downloading information. And you think, that's a feeling I've got, or a knowing I've got, or a visual or a thing. You're downloading it. Unless you're filtering it, which means you are conscious of your thoughts, you are downloading it. So this is what Egypt was. This is what Tartaria was. This is what it is now. And if we, that's probably all the slides I've got now. But if you wanted to talk about how old I think this grid is, I'm really happy to.
Oh yeah, please do.
To talk about that. Do you want to press remove stage or stop screen? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Stop screen. Okay.
There you go.
Or remove stage. So I'm not sure. You should still be able to find this information, but it's hard to find this information. As I've been working and remembering actually some of my, particularly past lives, and especially like the Roman period, how they used to, before battle, they used to program the reality. They used to do specific rituals over places in order to program not only their own army, but the space, so that it wasn't just what they were wearing and everything. They came with, you might think of it as magic, but it isn't really. It's kind of like an energy field where everybody had the same kind of intention. And if your enemy did prepare the same, then they would just, be bowled over literally by this effect that they were able to create. So as you know, that it's been going a long time, and if you think about how long the architects have been here, we've looked at like archons and architects and the other beings associated with this, which you might call reptilians or Dracos or things like this. Now they all live in we all know that they've all been disconnected from source, which is an energy field, and they have their own field, right? So this is the matrix field, but it's a finite source of energy. So where does this energy come from? It's parasitized off living beings, because our soul is connected to the infinite source of energy. When I was starting to think about this, I was realizing that anything synthetic in our reality, whether it is the oil-based pharmaceuticals, the oil-based agrochemicals, the plastic, the polyester clothes, everything that is made of oil plastic is toxic to your body. It's toxic. And it means that the field is out of phase with you. It's like it's not living. And we call oil, like all the materials and everything coming from that, synthetic. Okay, because they're a mimic of the reality that is slightly out of phase. And everything that comes from oil, I mean, we get told that oil is a finite resource, But we all have by now, those of us who listen to this podcast, know that this was a fallacy, and it was created, just over maybe 150 years ago by Rockefeller, I think it was, who basically bribed his way into an event to tell everybody, no, it's finite, so we could put a price on it. And people have left it at that, thinking, actually, this is just a scam. Well, actually, it's deeper than that. So when you understand that, the controls and the families and the bloodlines have been here for a very long time, they understand how this world works. Oil is a renewable source. And I started to look, well, where is it renewed from? Now, this is going to blow your mind, everyone, right? In parts of Eastern Europe and Russia, at certain degree levels, when they're doing, I can't remember what they're called, oil exploration degrees, whatever they're called, they've probably got a proper name. They get taught a different theory about how oil is created. They say it is constantly being renewed, and it's actually made by a bacteria called RK bacteria, right? Archons, RK, architects. It's always this word. As soon as I read that after researching this, you imagine oil and water don't mix. It's like water is the lifeblood of information, oil is the opposite. As soon as I researched this, I found this word about this archaic bacteria. I was suddenly transported back to the exam that I did for my undergraduate degree, and even back to being at my table. I remember my folder and everything, researching this because we had a question on it. Archaic bacteria, and I kid you not, archaic bacteria are synthetic life forms. So imagine that we have on this planet, if I was going to say to you now, we have synthetic life forms, they'd be like, what? And do you know how long they've been here? 3.5 billion years. Now, if you know that you cannot have a substance such as oil, you can't have oil without there being a field for oil, the matrix field must have been here for 3.5 billion years. And whether or not it's 3.5 billion years, but basically it's been here as long as oil. And then, AJ, and I'm sure you're going to dive in a minute, you think about all of the wars that have been fought over oil, which is a finite resource, and really think, actually, this is about the matrix grid.
Yeah, absolutely. All the wars are, so obviously we went to Iraq 2003 to Basra, which is obviously part of Basra. Al Basra is actually sort of like the sort of western side or the left side of a very large Stargate, which goes into Iran. Stargate 10, which is obviously what this current war is pretty much about, in the grand scheme of things. And Bosnia was the same. It was all about the energy from the pyramids, which you've been to several times. Even the Falklands was actually all about a synthetic AI technology called black goo. Many of you may see it in the movies like Venom and stuff like that, which was actually found by the British to be off the coast of Falklands, and hence why they sent special forces who actually got compromised when the Argentinians found out what they were actually after and tried to stop them. And it was, again, many people were sent to war again. And when you're in war in these places, they even call it theater. So they create the theater around the energy center in which they're trying to harvest as much energy or switch off or close or whatever that may be, whatever that intention is. But it's obviously that is the big agenda. And they just create war using obviously defense companies and bankers and everything else like that, politicians, blah blah blah. They already have the script, right, for this theater, and then people carry out acts of war, right? So you see where I'm going with this, and it's just and it's all funded and controlled by the same people, the whole theater. So as far back as you can go, battles, wars, this, that, and the other is about either it's got something to do with energy centers, either trying to destroy them. World War I was massively about that, trying to just use the cover of war and trench warfare to destroy as many Tartaria buildings and energy centers as possible. as well as doing a mass rituals day after day after day and a reset. And the same for World War II, you know, just mass rituals. And again, it was about drawing the Germans all out of Germany into France, so then they could smash the shit out of Dresden, which is a huge portal place, and was home to like huge cathedrals and energy centers and stuff that were like, literally decimated. You know what I mean? And it's always that motive. And it's interesting. You only have to look at Hitler when he said he kept warning England, and UK, Britain bombed Germany 7 times before Germany actually retaliated. And even when he retaliated, he said, "Do not destroy any sacred sites," and that is why St. Paul's Cathedral was the only thing that wasn't flattened during the Blitz along that whole area.
Yeah, I was listening to that about Churchill the other day, and and this is a very important point. I mean, there's a war now, and there's so many things coming up. It's a psyop week, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we can, if you think this is about nations, and you think that politicians or even bloodlines are the ones we need to worry about in this planet, you haven't gone deep enough. And you can then start to think, actually, is this hopeless? Because they send out information, and at the moment, the information is very negative. The information that's been programmed into the collective through the matrix is to, you know, snitch on each other, turn on each other, and hate each other. And I don't know if you've noticed how the narratives are piling out at the moment. It was a lot easier to pick a side 5 years ago. It's not so easy now. It's almost like, you know, the left are talking about Gaza, and people are, you know, looking at Gaza and saying, well, I don't care about that. And, you know, that's a left-wing problem and they don't know what's going on. When these people are suffering, right? Because that's the left agenda. The right agenda is something else. We've got to stop taking sides, people, and start taking the sides of the people, because regardless of, you know, it isn't just like one particular religion that is, you know, in charge of this planet on the dark side. It is not one. They are all working for a much darker and higher agenda. And when you understand that that agenda is all based on frequency and your unconscious connection and fuel to their grid, you can stop feeding it. You don't have to like go and get yourself attention. You don't have to do anything. We have to take our consciousness out of their grid, because that is how they are feeding of us. And as the planet rises in frequency, we need to connect to it and join it, because the more of us that are in the earth grid, right, and the fewer people feeding the matrix, that frequency then overrides anything that they can do. So it's a perfect, we are so blessed to be awake right now, because it's not only humans have awoken at this time altogether, because everything is with us. The planetary systems, the other beings that are helping us, the earth, it's the perfect time, because this has been going on for, let's say, I'm right about this, it's been here for 3.5 billion years. We have tried to get out before and failed, and that's why there's a reset. This time, there is no failure. It's already over. All you are seeing is parasitic forces and the 3D constructs of the people and the policies around them falling down. And how do you bring people out of the matrix into the organic? You don't do it by shouting at them, calling their names, sitting on sides and belittling people, and also telling people off for the mistakes and con tricks that they fell for in the past. The only way to do that is to come into the organic grid. And in that is compassion and understanding that everybody, not just in this lifetime, but many lifetimes, have been suckered in one way, shape, or form. Every single one of us. So have some compassion for your fellow human, raise their vibration. And if you can't physically do it, then for want of a better word, pray for them, meditate on it. Don't belittle them. Stop joining in their game, because there's a huge program at the moment for people to take sides and to tear each other down and be horrible to each other. And we've got to stop doing that and work together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an amazing, amazing message, Joe. And yeah, there's a lot of it going on at the minute. There's so much fear and belittling people, or just spreading crap, or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? It's all like very negative out there at the moment. And again, it creates more divide and split opinions on this, split opinions on that, distraction, away from exactly what you said. Like all we need to simply be doing is tapping into the organic grid, because that is where the information we need, the truths are, your wisdom. That's why I sit with the tree. Because it's like, not. I'll tell you what, that tree's got a lot more wisdom than anyone on Facebook. So now is the time to be getting amongst it, and I put a post on my Facebook earlier about it's fucking go time. I'm just bored now of it's not waiting. I'm not waiting. I'm bored of waiting, but it's literally, for me, it's go time. And I know everyone watching this has got a spark within their soul in the last week or two. They're just they're on the edge of their seats now. They know this is it. It's like the last furlong towards end game, so to speak. And everyone can feel it, everyone can really feel it. And that's what I'm getting so many DMs from people at the minute. It's amazing. They're experiencing big things at the minute. They're connecting to star family and dreams, or in meditations. They've got a lot of ancestral stuff coming through. I've got friends who've just had complete God source downloads about who they are and where they're from, and just bang, flash to bang, as we like to call it in the military. It's absolutely magical time at the minute, and it's because everyone's tapping into the organic grid, because they're removing themselves from all the different matrix grids, just in their own subtle ways, right? And that's by doing a lot of this inner work, right? A lot of this getting rid of the old and shedding and stuff like that, which is really important. How you do that was always going to be your way. There's not a one size fits all. But I think just getting wise on protecting your biofield, and that's why obviously your biofield protectors are so important. If you haven't, or if you're listening out on this, if you visit crystalwaterexperience.com, you can get Joe and Kelly's amazing biofield protectors there. You can use my discount code AJ10. Cheeky little discount on the else.
It is. We had that especially for you, didn't we, AJ? And we've got jewellery now. I mean, since we did this show, well, it was about 18 months ago now. We've got jewellery. We've got these harmonizers, because our environment's very important. It's about nervous system regulation, and if you imagine that your nervous system is like your antenna, it is not just your pineal gland; it's your whole antenna. When you are wired up and you've got blockages, you need to unblock them. And so, you and Corinne, you've got the Cambo, and that's literally removing these blockages that are unconscious in people to allow their nervous system to flow, because you are just this dynamic electrical being. And if you are not connected yourself, you can't connect externally. And if I may, I'd really like to share a really profound story that happened yesterday that really brought this home to me, because a lot of people, you get told you've got to heal yourself. And Michael Jackson did that song. If you want to heal the world, you've got to look in the mirror. And this absolutely brought it home to me. I mean, I've said this many times and I believed it, right? It wasn't until yesterday that I felt it, and it just hit home very differently. I had a conversation with my parents, and my parents are at that age where they've done a lot. They're amazing people, and their struggles and the trauma that they had in life was just incredible. But they've done their absolute best to bring up their children, absolute best, and they can see the world around them going to, shit, and they can see lots of struggles. And they're very worried about me and my path, right? Why don't you keep your head down, Jo? Why don't you, don't trust people. People are inherently evil. And if you're going to spend your time doing this, you should look after yourself. And while they were saying this, there's one way I could have looked at this. And it kind of got a bit more heated than that. They were like, literally, one way I could have been looking at this. They don't trust me. They don't value what I do. They're not proud of me. And they think what I'm doing is kind of nonsense. But I didn't see it like that. And all through that whole process, I was so calm. And I was observing this, what was probably seen by people who were dysregulated as disrespect and, being horrible. I saw it as love, because they were really genuinely concerned, because they were in fear, and they were therefore in fear of me because they love me. And they really love humanity, but they just don't know how to deal with it. It's too big a problem. You're wasting your time. And I saw that as, I wish I could help, but I can't. And I left that whole thing, and I didn't argue. I stood my ground from time to time. I gave them a hug when I left. And a couple of hours later, my mum contacted me, and she said, I'm really sorry, Jo. Just want you to know that we're really proud of you. This is not something that my parents do. They don't open up themselves to things emotionally. And I'm trying to think of a time when they've ever said that. And my reply back to them was, you're the best parents a girl could ever have. I love you both very much. And that was because I was not communicating with them with words and logic. I was so regulated. My nervous system was firing. I knew I was communicating. I could feel it with my whole body. And even though we left it then, I knew as I left, I was so happy. They left very confused, but I knew I'd done something. And I was like, that feeling, I can't describe it. I was communicating. And so whenever I see people like go to protests and they've got counter protests, people shouting at each other, you're not communicating. It's not helping. You've got to get that fear out. And how do you know that you've done it? The only way I know I've done it and cleared it was at that moment. I know I've done a lot of work on it, but until I wasn't triggered, and I just felt that I was like, I've done it. I know what that feeling is now. So now I'm looking at other things that trigger me, such as money and all these other things. And I'm now looking to see whether I've done enough work to clear myself by triggering myself and see how I feel. Because that is why you have to heal, because we can communicate like a whale. Do you know when their song goes for miles? When your nervous system is regulated, because you've cleared your trauma, you can communicate at the soul level. And if you haven't, you can't. So the more of us that can do this, the better.
Amazing. Well, Jo, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Always a delight just chatting to you and listening to you. I learn like a ton of stuff every time, we have big conversations, like I always do. And that's what I've always expressed that deeply to a lot of people, is in just surround yourself with like amazing people in their fields that are just, like become sort of like mentors in their own ways. And you always end up getting so many extra pieces for your jigsaw puzzle, like when, people listen to yourself and other people out there doing amazing work. So thank you so much for that.
And you for the same, and same to everybody that comments. And I see other people commenting on your stuff. I'm always commenting on yours and listening. It's a two-way street. We've got this together. So thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. And as I mentioned earlier, guys, if any of you are interested in Crystal Water Experiences, amazing products, like I said, I've got them on my phone, my laptop, my router. I'd stick them on my shoulders if I could. But before going into places like Tesco's.
Corinne's got one of these, hasn't she?
Yeah. Corinne's got one of the bracelets, yeah. So yeah, you can have a look at all their amazing products on crystalwaterexperience.com. And use my discount code AJ10 if you wish to purchase anything at the checkout. Get you some discount on there. But yeah, thanks again, Jo. And thank you, ladies and gents, once again for another Thursday night spent with us. And like I said, next Thursday, I am actually going to be on holiday for the first time in ages. I'm going on an amazing golfing holiday with my awesome son. So I won't be live next Thursday. However, I will be the following week with our beautiful Kelly, I believe, the week after that. So Kelly,
Yes.
the other half of Crystal War Experience is going to be joining us. So yeah, to keep in your diaries, guys. 8 o'clock on Thursdays is when I really want to stay consistent. So you guys can bring your questions and everyone can learn a little every single week. But for myself and Joe, take it easy, guys, and I'll see you once again soon on Transmissions with AJ. Much love.